what I like about that is he's not the most obvious story, right? Because if you wanted to do a feature about someone on that basketball team, most people's first thought is, oh, I'm going to pick the best player, or write all about them, or the guy who, the point guard who runs all the action, right? Or maybe a coach or something. You wouldn't really think about the team manager, but it's a great idea for a story because it's an unusual angle. It's probably not something that most people would think about, and it's why, in ways that people don't maybe recognize, really contributes to that team. So, in my notes to you on here, I thought like the first paragraph is nice, right? Because you feel that excitement playing, what it's like to actually be on the court. That doesn't really relate though to the person that you're talking about, unless you link those two things, right? So what I would do if you want to revise this, you might take in a game and sit back and look at the team when they are performing at their best, right? And describe what that is like. Center grabs a rebound, quickly outlets it to the point guard who runs up court, scans the defense, delivers a perfect pinpoint pass to guard or forward or for an easy layup. Right? It's like it's a machine. And then the transition to this point could be something like one of the keys to success in the McKinley Tigers basketball team is a student, or a junior here, who never even takes the court. Right? Because that sets up like a little bit of intrigue. Right? If you're talking about like how does someone who doesn't even play contribute to how well this team is playing, much less a student, then it's a hook, but it's also a promise. It's a promise from you to the reader to explain to them something that's going to be really interesting. And from there you introduce, right? This is Emmanuel Manny Piche. Okay. Manager for the basketball team, right? And then I would go right into like one of the quotes that you got. And I like that first one. Man's a very hard worker, right? So said Ray J. John. He comes to the basketball team and helps out. Right? Okay, so good. So you have somebody commenting about this guy. I think what you can do next is tell us, how did he get there? What is his story? Right? Which is that he tried out for the team, he didn't make it, but they liked him, right? They offered him, hey, why don't you be a team manager? And then, like you said, he didn't have a lot of ego, right? He wasn't too proud to go and take this position. And it turns out that he's really good at it. And then he kind of explained the different things that he does. So, in my notes to you on this story, but the only other thing I'll do is like explain specifically what he does, right? So in practices, what does he do? Right? When the team is warming up, what is he doing? Shagging balls and returning them, making sure people are where they're supposed to be. And then you talk about how they all kind of joke around after the game, like he's really good for the chemistry and camaraderie. Show us that. Show us what that looks like. They teasing each other, or like ragging on people for missing free throws or something, keeping things light, whatever it might be. Like there's a principle in journalism and storytelling where we say show, don't tell. Right? So rather than saying the guys like to goof around after practice, instead of just telling us that, show us what it looks like. Right? Describe the action. Okay? So if you're thinking of stuff to submit to the contest, submit this one. That if you polish up that one, that'll be good. This one is really good already, because you found a great angle about the principal, and one that really kind of I think humanizes him a bit. Now the thing that we also often talk about when you're doing like features or profiles or whatever is that you don't want to tell every single thing about a person. You want to pick the most interesting things, and you want to find one really special way of looking at that person, and you want to kind of use that as the main way of looking at them throughout the piece. And that's exactly what you did by finding out about his desire to be the first Japanese professional football player in the NFL. And that was that's really good. It was so good, in fact, that I thought that you could take that first paragraph and just throw it away and start right where you are in the second paragraph. Right. Ron Okamura never actually thought about being a principal. Yeah, he'd always look at himself in the future as the first Japanese professional NFL football player. Right. I think that's a great read because I want to read that story, especially if I know him. I don't even know him, but I know a lot of high school principals, and not a lot of them have ever aspired to play in the NFL. So I would take those two sentences and make that your read, and then tell the story, right? You can have him. You can start with that quote, like how he wanted, get this idea that he wanted to do, and he didn't let his limitations stand in his way of like succeeding. We need to know though what was he actually able to accomplish? Like, was he able to play high school football? Was he able to play college maybe or something before he came to the realization that I'm going to go do something else? So if you kind of tell that full story up to the point where he decides to major in education, then you give us like a different way of looking at it. So everything you write after that point now becomes changed because we see him not only as the guy who's your principal, but this guy who, as a kid, wanted to be a football player. Right? Then you can talk about the other things. I thought the stuff about the food was really funny, and I thought the food thing was another really great thing that you got out of the interview. Not because he likes food and likes to eat, which I think everybody does, but because it gave you an opportunity to talk about where he comes from. Right? He come from Hilo at the time when he came from Hilo. I was there. Not a whole lot of stuff. So if you have like that one great place, that sort of pizza or something, that's an exciting thing, and it lets you kind of like see him as something other than just your principal. Here's like this local boy from Hilo, who learned to love food because there's like this, among the few restaurants in his town, is this great pizza place. And there wasn't a lot to do. He just ended up there. Right? So this is a profile, I think, that is composed of stories, and people like stories more than any other form of sharing information. You share two major ones: football, thing about the food, and you're not talking about like his everyday duties here. You're not going through his resume and saying this is where he graduated from, this is the degree he holds. All that stuff is good, but you're letting us experience him as a human being, and that's the essence of the profile. So submit it as a feature or a profile, whatever. But this is really good, and it's the result. I mean, like as a reporter, and I've been doing this for like 25 years. When I read this, I know that you got a great interview with him, because if he was just giving you like yes and no answers, or if you were too shy to ask interesting questions, you would never get the material to write this. So it was a great job. Okay, you have a sense of the engaging lead, right? The exciting thing. So we just need to know, first of all, just a little more information. Where and when did this happen? Right? I'm assuming this is like a mainland incident.
Yeah.
Or something. Okay. So just explain where and when it happened and where you got the story from, just to be fair and source it out. Okay, so we're talking about this is the introduction to Siri. Now there seems to be like a kind of two ends of the spectrum of thoughts about Siri, which is you can use it for really silly things, right? Like the two students you interviewed did, right? Or potentially it can be like this thing that saves your life when 5,000 pounds of metal collapses on top of you. So here again, I think we got to go back to that wormy idea and say, okay, what exactly am I writing about? Right? So is it Siri's potential to be a lifesaver, or is it Siri in general, or is it Siri from the perspective of high school students? Right? And I think maybe the strongest approach would be to say, Siri is like this, whether you want it or not, it's on the phones of like probably at least hundreds of students on campus, right? Some of them don't use it, and some will use it for silly things. A lot of them probably never consider that it can also be like a lifesaver, right? That's your example here. So I'm thinking that, and I kind of like that thing you did where you asked him about it first, and then you told him the story, and then the reactions kind of changed. I always kind of want to flesh this out a little bit and say, okay, these are the two extremes. How else do people on campus use it, right? And if you don't use it, why not? And kind of find like the everyday approaches to it. And you can also talk about, because you mentioned that it's, or one of your sources here mentions that it can be like a detriment. So what are some of the ways that Siri can be misused or used in ways that just aren't productive in the campus, right? But again, that impulse, the instinct to use something dramatic to introduce your topic guarantees it if people are going to read on. You just need to like lead them to what you actually mean.
Okay.
A little bit quicker.
Thank you.
Really good. Okay. Lunch duty. So how did you get the idea for this?
I'm new here, and back where I used to live, they didn't have lunch duty. And then I came here, and then I found out that all Hawaii schools have lunch duty.
Right.
And I found out that a lot of students were complaining about it.
Okay. Where are you from?
California.
Okay. All right. Yeah. You didn't know you were going to be slave labor, right, for the school? We were saying that when I was doing lunch duty 30 years ago. So that's okay. This is like a great high school campus story, right? It's one of those ones that's always interesting because it affects almost everyone. Right? I'm going to give you one more acronym to remember. TIPPI. TIPPI. And this is how we figure out if something is newsworthy or not, or whether it's worth covering. So the T is for timeliness, right? Meaning that it's current, it's still going on, or just only recently concluded. Okay? And that's just based on the idea that news is new, right? It's old, not news. The I, and this is where this story comes in, is for impact, meaning that the story affects the reader in some kind of direct or substantive way.
So this is like tip cup?
Yeah, there's all different kinds of formulas for it, right? The two P's are for prominence and proximity. What's your P for? Tip cup?
Prominence and proximity.
Okay, good. So you know what those concepts mean, right? And then the last I is for interest. And that's what we're talking about with these feature stories. Okay, so for this one, right, it's timely because it still goes on. It impacts just about every student on campus. Right, it's prominent just in that it's an everyday occurrence. So every single day, someone is experiencing this, right? So it has that type of prominence. It's proximal because it's happening right here, right? And it would be interesting if you have kind of an opinion about it, right? If you like to do it, if you don't like to do it. If you're indifferent, maybe this article can tip you one way or the other. Okay, so how did you choose the people that you're going to interview?
We just randomly chose them, right? Just walked around.
Okay.
Well, yeah, and Laverne Moore, she's been a teacher here and she's been a student here too.
Oh, that's good.
And then,
That must not be super clear then if you were surprised.
Yeah, I think that would
So
be
we
a
need to
great
make it more
mention.
clear.
I would say special education history teacher Laverne Moore, who's also a McKinley alumni, said having this because that gives you, because you know that she's been through it.
Yeah.
and then also Mitch Arnold
Mhm.
is the cafeteria manager.
Good, good. So that's like the official voice that you need
Yeah.
to include. That's really good. Okay. Again, I couldn't find a lot to add to it. I thought that this was really close to being done. Right? The only things I would kind of go back to, one sort of just technical thing. In the fourth and fifth paragraphs, you have two quotes back to back. In general, you try not to stack quotes back to back. There should be some kind of a paragraph or something in between those. And then this, the quote from Moore, the cafeteria has existed for years. It doesn't really add anything because it's a little bit too vague. So you can either go back and research when exactly the Board of Education adopted the rule, or just take it out entirely. But otherwise, it's really good. I would, I think in the Moore quote, you kind of get what the job actually is. If you wanted to, you can go a little bit further and explain in more detail what exactly you do on the service days or whatever. You might want to address in follow-up to Mr. Tran's quote, is it a problem to miss a portion of class for this? And what does that, how do people have to deal with that? You end up like, does the teacher end up having to like go over stuff with you again, or are there, what are the ways that people deal with the loss of that class time? I don't actually like to use the word opinion because opinion, you can have an opinion and it doesn't have to be necessarily be a good one or an informed one. I use the term informed judgments. That means that you have read and researched the issue before you come to a conclusion about it. So generally there's two types of commentaries for persuasive ones. One is a position editorial, and that's where you have a definite position or a take on something that's going on right now. And your goal is to convince people that you're right and to agree with your position. And if you can't do that, you want them to at least be able to nod and say, okay, I don't agree, but they have a point. Their point is valid. The second kind is we call a proposal. That's where you looked at a problem or an issue and you want to suggest a way of solving it. And so there, it's not just to get people to agree with you, but to act on your suggestion. So like if you say, I don't know, we shouldn't have beets in our school lunch, right? And you come up with like 5 really good reasons. If you just want people to agree and nod their heads, then you write a position paper, right? If you want them to replace it with something better, we should replace beets with pineapple, right? And you give some good reasons. You say, okay, you explain, here's how we're going to do this, right? We're gonna write to the cafeteria coordinator, and whenever it comes time to order foods, we'll tell them that pineapple is more nutritious and students enjoy it more, and we should all write to that person and ask him or her to order pineapple instead of beets. That's a proposal because you're asking people to do something. Okay, so how did you come up with the idea?
I just noticed that a lot of people on social media are very fake. So
Good. Let's see now that's getting down to the heart of it, right? Okay, if you have a pen, write this down. WIRMI. Okay, now whenever you are writing a commentary and you're thinking about how am I going to organize it, how am I going to write it, what am I going to say first or second or last, think of wormy. What I really mean is, and that'll help you focus in really tightly on what exactly you want to write about. So in this one, it seems like the main point is that, what is it? Sarah, exactly like Sarah said, man, you know, you look at people's Instagram pages and a lot of them look really nice and you think, man, these people have like these great lives, right? And if you're sensitive like I am, like I look at other people's Instagrams or Twitters and I think, wow, I'm missing out on something. I must not be doing things right because everybody seems to be having these great lives. And then you find out, like Sarah found out, that no, actually, a lot of times, you know, what gets presented is not really reality, but it's sort of a enhanced reality, right? People kind of put on a show on Instagram these places for different reasons, right? Sometimes it's for business purposes to generate money and revenue, get people to like you, and you know, and you can buy, right, likes and followers, or just because you know you want people to think that you have a better life than you do. Right? That's a very human thing. So this commentary is all about that. And what's really nice is you use that example of I don't know how you pronounce her name, Sena O'Neill, and how she had really carefully kind of contrived and cultivated these great-looking photos for her site, but they weren't the reality of what really was going on. I think because you guys are working for a high school newspaper, you kind of want to focus on that shared experience that all of your readers have, like being high school students and maybe using Instagram for certain reasons. So I think there are a few things in here that maybe we don't really need. I think there's some good points, right? The whole thing about self-esteem is very important. Positive uses like sharing photos and that kind of stuff, or keeping contact, that could probably be like just a paragraph to say this is how Instagram is commonly used. But if your point is that maybe it's not such a good thing if people are feeling pressure to buy followers or whatever else, then maybe that should be a little bit higher. And that should probably take up like 90% of the article. It's focusing in on, if that's not a good thing, why is it not a good thing? Right? Now for you guys, I mean, like, if you went and posted like only good pictures of yourself, and then you went out and you bought like 1,000 followers and this stuff was really popular, when you go home that, how would you feel actually? Would you feel like that person who has 1,000 followers and lives this great life? Yeah. It doesn't really solve the problem. If you're unhappy and you try to present yourself as happy, it doesn't cure your unhappiness. So maybe you can kind of like go just a step further and explain why this is not such a good thing, or not a necessary thing. Okay, now a couple of small technical things for commentaries. Because it's all about what you think, not what other people think, generally we don't include quotations from other people. So it's good to interview people and do research and get background so you know what other people are thinking. But when it comes time to write it, you can refer to what other people have said. Probably paraphrase it instead of using direct quotes. And don't let it be more than maybe like at most maybe a quarter or a fifth of your article. Most of your commentary should be your voice. And the other thing is when you are writing in your voice, because it's your byline and it's your commentary, you don't really need to say I very much when you think of something. So you don't need to say I think. You just state what you think because people know that it's your thought because your name is there. Okay, so that's really good. When you do quote people directly, and this is something that's useful, I think, for all of you as writers, you put the citation, the such and such said, after the first natural break in what the person is saying. So generally that's after the first sentence. Right? So if we have like this long one from Brandon Collin, this is about 2/3 of the way down. I believe it builds self-esteem, but with everything there's a thin line to it. There's a boundary that sets it from self-esteem and desire and lust. Lust in the sense of wanting to fit in and conform to modern standards, and it goes on. And it's a really good quote. But we don't know who's talking, right? So what it's good to kind of go, I believe it builds self-esteem, but with everything, there's a thin line to it, comma, end quote, said Senior Brandon Kahn. And then you continue, quote, there's a boundary, right, and you go all the way to the end, so that we know who's talking. We have this other one. Okay, this is all about coming to school and sticking around to graduate. So who did this one? The person that
Katie.
Sorry, I'm assuming you're Katie because everyone's looking at you. Okay. All right, good. So you hit on something. Okay, now, let's see. Why do students come to school? A freshman, Rington Johnson, said, I come to school to learn. Right? There are many reasons to come to school, but not all of them are pressing matters in students' minds. Okay, so that's a good lead. It doesn't really get directly to what the actual issue is, right? So if, what I understand, the real point of the commentary is that there are quite a lot of students who do not make it to graduation, right, either on time or at all, because they don't come to school, right? So what is your name? Katie. Katie, is arguing here that what they need is they need to be provided with the motivation that it takes to come to school, to stick it out, for 4 years and make it to graduation, because doing so helps you to achieve more after high school, right? And you still have your whole 80-year life after high school, right? And so much of it depends on how good a start you get, right? So what caught my eye the first time I read through this was this great stat that she found. McKinley's college graduation rate in 2013-14 was 81%. Okay, and so when we do in stories, when we do percentages, we spell out the word percent. Right? Meaning 19% of students take more than 4 years to get their high school degree or are dropouts. Okay, so that is, my eyes kind of popped out, because that's a lot of people to not get a degree, right? Because if you look at what happens to people who graduate versus people who don't make it to graduation, if you made a graph out of it, it tends to kind of go like this, The people who don't graduate, they work and they make some money and they kind of progress from there. People who graduate automatically are on this little bit higher arc, and then if they go to college, it kind of goes more. If you get an advanced degree, it goes here, to the point where you end up pretty far, right? Difference in terms of quality of life and the amount of control that you have over your own life because of financial, circumstances and all that kind of stuff. So this is like a really significant thing. That's why I was thinking, when you write an introduction, you want to grab people's attention right away. Right? So think about what would happen if you took this commentary and you started out with that quote, or that statistic, right? Kennedy's graduation rate, college graduation rate in 2013-14 was 81%, meaning, and I would round up and say, if you already say 81%, people can do the math. So you can say, meaning, almost 1/5 of all students take more than 4 years to get a high school degree or are dropouts, which limits their job opportunities, right? Then it becomes a number that you can imagine, right? Because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people on this table, right? Meaning one and a fraction of us aren't going to live the same kind of lives that the rest of you potentially can, right? That's it's a serious thing, right? So then, if you present that as a situation, a current situation, you say, okay, well, why is this happening? Well, it's happening in part because people aren't going to school, right? And so we need to address this problem, and that sets up the commentary. The commentary then becomes what you're saying. We got to motivate these people, right? So I think what you have here is the start. I think this is probably about like half or 1/3 of the length that it should be when you make a fully fleshed out argument. And I think what you need to do next is you say, okay, you got to motivate them. That's easy to say. How do you motivate them? Right? Because I'm sure they've heard all the same things, right? It's kind of interesting. Earlier this week, I went to Kalani High School, and that's where I graduated. And I graduated there 30 years ago. I was a 1986 graduate. And what was kind of interesting for me was I was not a good student. I kind of barely graduated from high school. You know, I played around a lot. I didn't go to class regularly. I was, in a way, maybe kind of lucky to graduate. I had a group of friends. About half of them dropped out, half of them graduated. I was the only one who decided to go to college afterwards. And that's where everything changed for me. I eventually, got a BA in journalism, and then I got a master's and a PhD in English. So graduating was really important. If I hadn't done that, the path of my own life would have been very different. And so I think, and I had heard all the exact same things that every one of my classmates had heard. You gotta go to school for your future, right? You gotta go to school because it makes you a better person, and it makes you a more thoughtful individual. You'll learn and appreciate more about the world. It'll help you get a good job. I heard all those things, but it didn't motivate me the same way it did other ones of my classmates who really did well in high school. So I think your challenge, right, is how do we, if you're saying that the school needs to motivate them, then you got to think, well, okay, what can I suggest to the school in terms of getting through to them, right? Part of it for me was that I just didn't really think much about my future. I figured I'd worry about it when I got to it. So how do you address somebody who thinks like that? We sit them down and maybe you can suggest people who are at risk of not graduating, maybe they need to have a mandatory session with a counselor and say, okay, look at because there's all kinds of information out there, right, about the difference between what a high school graduate makes and what someone who doesn't graduate makes, or what someone who gets a GED later makes, and the difference are tens of thousands of dollars. Yeah, maybe that's what that'll reach them. And you think in terms of, 5 years from now, your classmates are going to be able to afford the first car, and they can afford an Accord, and if the statistics hold true, you're going to probably have to buy like a used Kia. Think in terms of things that speak to them. In 10, 15 years, right? Your classmates are going to be able to afford a house and the neighborhood that they choose. You're probably going to be living with your mom. Whatever it might be. And we're kind of generalizing here a little bit, but you want to kind of think of solutions to what you're proposing, I think. And so, did you have any questions about or how are you thinking about your editorial?
Oh, well, I had this idea, and then I went and interviewed people, but I didn't come up with solutions on my own, think, well, there's a solution to the problem, or what we could do and all that. I didn't really think about that.
Sure. No, I think raising the issue is really important. And by itself, that's a worthy editorial. All I'm thinking about is, how do you take it to that next step? Because this could be a prize-winning.
I mean, schools already do a lot, try to motivate.
Right.
They get guest speakers and they talk about college, and really I think it's the students that has to be open to ideas.
Right. True. It's interesting. I mean, you can. I would just take take an afternoon and just sketch out some ideas. If you can find things that you think would really kind of help to make students more receptive to the message, I would include it in there. If you can't, I think what you have here is good, and I would just kind of the other option is to just do a little bit of research and talk more about what people can expect in terms of these are this is the likely path you're going to follow if you don't. Right? Because statistically, people have done studies on these things and said the average high school graduate makes this much, the average college dropout or high school dropout makes about this much over the course of their lives. And that might just be something where you actually can speak directly to your own classmates and say, hey, think about this. Think about what you're doing to yourself. So the issue here is this dress code. You guys have a dress code on this one already? The one that you quoted about no distracting clothing and all that? Okay. So you have one that's already in place. There was a survey that I guess asked you about the issue, right? Kind of revisiting the issue. This is one where we want to go, okay, so what I really mean is, right, the point of this thing is that when I get to the end, what I understand from your discussion of it is that the dress code that we have might not be perfect, right, but it kind of does the job, right? I mean, what you don't want is to make it any more restrictive. Is that, yeah, okay. So I think we need a few things just so like the person who hasn't been paying attention will be able to understand what you're talking about. So I would say first ask, what did the survey ask? What exactly was the purpose of the survey? Right? So maybe you can talk to the school administrator and just say, why do we have the survey? What were you trying to find out? Right? If they have results of it, that might be kind of interesting to share. Really like the way you personalize it by talking about uniforms and coming from a private school and what the benefits were from having that, and then also the benefits that you realized once you came here and did not have that same kind of restriction, to be kind of more expressive. So I think you can kind of talk about it in those terms. It's really good, really important that you included what the current dress code is so that everybody understands. You might want to talk a little bit about, is this something that people actually, is it really enforced? Do people ever get sent home for wearing like a derogatory phrase on their shirt or something? Is it a problem? Are people kind of pushing the boundaries so that administrators might want to do something more restrictive, right? And then ultimately you're arguing that what we have is fine. Okay. The only I think weakness maybe in the things that you're arguing is in that second to last paragraph. One reason for a stronger dress code is because some clothing may be distracting for some boys. What I mean to say, I think, is that it isn't boys or girls' fault. I've been clothing designers. There are people who decide how everything looks and then they produce it, give it to someone famous, and then boom, it's like, wow, it's fire. The only other thing I think that someone might counter-argue, is that, yeah, but you have to choose to buy it, right? You have to choose to wear it. So when you're making arguments, one of the things that you should do once you put down all your points is read through your own work and pretend that you are like the most argumentative person in the world. You just want to argue against every point. Think about what that person is going to argue against that you just wrote. Right? And so if that person says, yeah, but don't you choose to wear it, right? What is your response going to be? Right? And if you can address that question before it ever comes up, even better, right? So you could say, it's true that we choose what to buy, and what to wear, but this is heavily influenced by how much designers, saturate the advertising around us and what stores choose to stock. Like that limits our choices. Take it a step further and anticipate what other people are going to argue against. But I think this is a really good piece. This is a good one. And I think this, again, is really close. It's all about reflecting on the 4 years that you've been here, using the occasion of that school assembly, listening to the speeches, to think about the issue of like tradition and what it means to be a McKinley type, right? And I thought at the very end, this is really nice how you sort of directly address the people who are going to remain at the school after you're gone. Right? So I really don't have much to say about this other than you mentioned tradition and what it means to be a tiger, I think a few times in here. What I would suggest is, again, take it a step further and explain what that is. What is the tradition of this school? It's not just that it's 150 years old, right? But that it's, you might want to mention some alumni at the end of the day, famous alumni. And then what I wanted to get to was, the thing that I got from this is that you feel that this place is special. It's the pride and tradition of this place is built on the fact that you guys are not like every other high school. Right? So if you could kind of explain a little bit about what it actually means to be a tiger. I mean, like for you guys, what is the thing about McKinley that is unique and special that you would want other people to know about? It's true, like, but for McKinley, I mean, like, I have a lot of friends who have gone here. They always warn me, don't step on the circle when I'm on campus. When they meet up with each other later on, there's that bond, because I think this school, more than a lot of other ones, kind of preaches like togetherness and unity and a kind of like shared thing. So if you can kind of explain what that is, I think that just elevates the commentary even more. And you can talk about it in just personal terms, what it means to you. Like when you look at your classmates, what is it that binds all you guys together?
Something that's more like personal, or something that's more like informal.
I don't know. I'm not involved in
Yeah.
competitions,
Yeah.
so I don't really know.
But it seemed like you were more gravitated towards the articles that were more like personal.
It depends what they are. Like, if you're doing news articles,
Yeah.
you're gonna do like commentary or something. In any case, it should. It never hurts an article, whether it's news, features, or commentary, if the person that you're focusing on, you're able to show them in a human and personal fashion. It depends what the story is, because if it's like Governor David Ige signs a new emergency measure on homeless people, I don't want to hear about Ige's childhood desire to be an Olympic diver. It's not relevant to the story. But if you're doing a feature on it, then it'd be. So it's all about recognizing what the story is and what the calls for. So, for example, like if we're talking about that same story, EA signs an emergency measure for homelessness, to address homelessness. If he had a distant relative who was homeless once, and he was willing to talk about it, that would be really interesting, because that connects to the actual issue. Yeah, the thing is, like, one of the things they tell you in journalism school is that all leadership is selfish. And you don't mean that in necessarily a negative way, but like basic human nature is that we tend to be most concerned with ourselves. Right? So you ever like, anybody ever show you like a stack of photos? Oh, hey, remember this party? And look at the photos and they're kind of good, but you kind of flip through them kind of fast, but then when you see one of yourself, you're like, oh, it's still on the day. We tend to kind of be most concerned about ourselves. The secondary thing is we tend to relate best to the things that make us recognize ourselves in something, whether even if it's not about us. Right? So if we're talking about manning the basketball team manager, you can recognize, like, when you really love something, even if you're not good at it, you just want to be around it, that could resonate with you. And so Manny's story becomes your story, in a way. And so that human dimension, that we have the ability to recognize things that affect us all, go back to that idea of we, by human nature, and there's nothing wrong with it, tend to be most concerned about self. So when you want to write to people and capture people's interest, write to them in a way that they see themselves in the thing that you write. So finally, the paragraphs. Who did this one?
Oh, me.
Okay. Now you just come up there. Okay. How long you been in the newspaper?
Oh, I'm a freshman, so. it's
Really?
like this. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, see, that's why they're abusing you. They're abusing you to make you do all the work. You know? Fight for you. Okay. So this is good. This is what we would call a response story. It's also what we would call localizing news. So I think this is another one where you got to figure out what is the story. The story here is not the actual attacks themselves, right? Because it's already been reported on. It's something that's done. It's done and reported on already. You don't have any special access. Like you weren't actually in Paris interviewing people there, or you weren't actually reporting this story. The story you're reporting is the impact and the reaction from McKinley students. Right? So I think you could probably take those first couple of paragraphs that talk about the actual incidents, and then this longer section in the middle, which I marked off here, where you follow up on more details of the actual Paris story. Compact that into two at the most paragraphs, just so that people who didn't follow the story understand what the facts are. And it can be more or less general that however number of ISIS operatives executed a coordinated attack at several sites in Paris that resulted in the deaths of 129 people on such and such date, whatever, right? And then I think you gotta, however many thousands of miles away. If you want to go and Google distance between Paris and Honolulu, you could probably do that and say this many numbers away. Students at McKinney High School were felt the impact of those attacks, and then start in with those really nice quotes that you're able to get, and you might want to kind of organize them according to the types of responses that you get. So maybe you start off with the students who express the most kind of distress or fear, right? That's something like this. If it happened there, it can happen anywhere, it can happen here. Does it change the way they do anything? Like if you walk into a big restaurant, are you nervous? When you go to a football game, and then maybe you can kind of present the other side. You don't just say, oh, it's really sad, but I don't really think that it's a threat, and it hasn't really changed anything for me. Kind of show the range of reactions and things. And you might even want to talk to, if you have a school counselor, you say, hey, because they're not going to reveal any personal information with you, but you can ask them, has anybody brought this up? Have students come to you, with concerns about feeling unsafe because of this, or teachers. So I think, if you just kind of reposition this as a response story versus a story about the attacks themselves, I think it'll be How did you feel doing this? Okay, raise your hand if you felt really comfortable talking to strangers. Oh, good. That's really good. That was a hard.
You mean interviewing people, talking, not you as a stranger, but going out and talking to them.
Yeah, for interviewing people, it's pretty. Yeah, it's okay.
Oh.
Good.
Isn't it awkward to stop people in the hall? Hey,
Yeah.
I did that.
No, you're going to the bathroom.
You have to know how to talk to them. They have to know how to talk to them, because some people are different. Sometimes they're having a bad day and you never know.
Right. Yeah, no, that was the biggest thing for me to get used to when I was starting out as a reporter. Because when I was taking classes at UH, they told us specifically, do not talk to your friends. Don't interview your friends. Right? Because the job really calls for you being able to go out and feel comfortable enough to talk to anyone. And as you go through this, you'll probably find that more often than not, if you're polite and respectful, most people will talk to you.
I'll ask a question. I say that to them, and a lot of my classes this year, last year, they say no. People don't want to talk to them.
Oh, yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
I haven't quite figured out why.
Some of that is it's kind of a local thing. My wife and I have kind of like this joke because I always complain to her. Old Japanese ladies are the worst. Because, and I'm Japanese, so I can say this. I'm like, hi, my name is Mike Tsai. I'm a reporter with the Honolulu Star Advertiser, and I'm doing a story about today's event. And I was wondering if I could ask you just a couple of questions about what you think about it. No, I don't like. I shame. Some of it is cultural. The second worst is when you got a group of like local people together, and then they all start pointing to each other. No, that's him. No, what's her? No, him. Cut your loss and just go thanks and walk away. But a lot of times, like if you let them know in advance, like what kinds of questions you're going to be asking them, because most of the times that people don't want to talk to you, it's because they're afraid of looking foolish, right, or not knowing what to say or saying something stupid. So if you tell them, like you're covering an assembly, and you go, hey, I'm doing a story about the assembly. I was wondering if I could ask you just what you thought about the speakers today. And sometimes if you don't wait for them to say yes or no, and just go, like for example, what did you think about the principal's talk? And they say something, then you go, that's really good. Can I ask you a few questions then? And if they know if you give them positive feedback about the person that they say, a lot of times they'll just keep talking. But a lot of it is when you interview enough people, you start to realize, man, every person is the same. Like, for my column, right, I interview just, the idea behind the column that I write is like, I want to talk to people who wouldn't otherwise be in the news, right? They're not newsworthy people, they're just everyday people. And I think that everybody has an interesting story to tell. So I'll talk to homeless people, or like the guy who works at the Kanyohi dump. Talk to waiters and waitresses and other people, everyday people. But then I've interviewed Kobe Bryant and Shaq and LeBron. And, I've talked to.
You interviewed Kobe?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I'll tell you the thing about Kobe he was getting up shots after practice, and his condition was, if I wanted to ask him a couple of questions, we were going to play horse. We would do like the horse, and that's that game where you have to match people's shots.
Oh.
Right, so like a person makes a shot, then you have to make it from the same place, and if you miss, you get like a letter until it spells out the horse. And you think that someone who is like supremely talented versus me, like you kind of give them like a little chance, and you make them feel okay. Oh man, no mercy. No mercy. Right. So it's like he walks out the first shot, he walks out the 3-point line on the side baseline. And he goes, you can make a 3-pointer, right? Like, I can make a 3-pointer. So he goes, okay, good. Then he walks straight off the court, past the end line, the out of bounds line, and he stands there and he looks like this bored. And so the game went like that. So I only managed to get like 2 questions, and that was part of the joke, is that the questions would last as long as the game would last. He wasn't going to give me any chance. And so for his last one, he just dunked. So, interview over, thank you for your, And it wasn't like he was funny, he wasn't laughing, he wasn't a joke. He was just like, right, get off the court. But the thing is, like, so there was that, but I've also had an opportunity to talk to him, because the Lakers used to do their camp down here. So I've had, more substantive one-on-one talks with him. I talked to the Emperor of Japan, talked to Desmond Tutu, who's the Archbishop of South Africa, kind of an important historical figure. A lot of like different kinds of important people, Samuel Jackson, The Rock, that kind of stuff. And the thing is, they're all just people. When you actually like just talk to them like a normal human being, they just talk to you like a normal human being. Some people have like attitudes, like but when it comes down to it, they're just as nervous about saying something dumb, or or whatever it is. And if you're nice to them, they're nice to you, and if you're not nice to them, they don't have to be nice to you. An interview really is just a conversation between two human beings. And if anyone doesn't want to talk to you, or they're not nice to you, it has nothing to do with who you are. That's just them in the world. You just move on from that person. All right. I gotta watch out for you. You're gonna put me out of a job one of these days.